Hi everyone, I am going to do a video right now that's a little bit of a two-topic video. The first topic is the current crisis on the stock market. Now, I call it a crisis at the moment because I'm not saying that I'm not one of these people who likes to predict things, but what we're seeing is the volatility that is attendant to some sort of major financial crisis. And I would say that unfortunately it will be utilized in order to attack, it'll be utilized, of course, to attack Donald Trump most of all. And I say that as somebody who would say you can't just say that he's blameless for everything that's going on in the world, but you can also, I mean, you bet your ass he's not to blame for everything that's going on. And indeed, I would say that financial crises, when they happen, have more to do with long-term financial policies of a given economy than they do with specifically who's elected and who isn't. You know, when Bush was blamed for the 2007 financial crisis, I think that there's plenty that you could attribute to him given the way that the Fed would go and just extend all of this credit. And also there was the behavior of the toxic, what were they called, subprime loan market. Now, has any of that been solved? I don't really see any sign of any solution that was solved in the past 10 years. They've had 10 years to get their act together, and they just don't learn. So maybe back then it was subprime loans, and maybe today subprime loans aren't the issue. The issue will likely be more an issue of student loan debt, sovereign debt. There's issues of states that have had to borrow money in order to pay public employee pensions. We've talked about that before. And for those of you that are saying, well, it's a sign that the American model is failing, that it's the American model if what you're seeing in front of you is the Swedish stock exchange, which is also not in good shape. This is the NASDAQ Stockholm market. Here's the Copenhagen market. It's also down pretty heavily for them. You have Helsinki, that's in Finland for those of you that don't know. That's down. Here we have the German DAX exchange down over 200 points earlier today. So there's two ways to approach that. Some would say that those markets are affected adversely by the behavior of our markets. The NYSE, the Dow. There's also, of course, our NASDAQ and what's the other one? The S&P 500. And I'm not a person who's going to pretend to be an expert on the stock markets, but I want to ask if all of these if all of these countries, which people on the neoliberal left call basically the free world now, because they don't consider America to be the free world now. Well, how is it that they're not able to insulate themselves from the volatility that apparently we're introducing in the market? The answer is that they are to blame for the same issues and policies that our financial system has been practicing for years. They're practicing the same policies that the Keynesians in the USA have practiced for years. All of the people that have been appointed to key positions as treasurers and as Fed people, they're all Keynesians. They believe in, in large-scale stimulus plans and stuff like that. And you don't have to be a major economic mind in order to realize that that's a recipe for failure. So that is, I would agree with people on the left that it's a recipe for failure. I just don't agree with their solution. And you can see here, this is from Winkle, who he's a far left wing guy, and he posted this from Richard Wolff, who I've done a video on with Sun Fei-yang. I think in the spring I did a video about his ridiculous perspective on how capitalism is imploding. Look, this is a guy, he teaches at a private college over in New York, the New School. He earns, over $100,000 a year, if not more than that. And the fact is that he's claiming that the French police are donning blue vests demanding better wages and working conditions. Many police also say they want to join the yellow vests demanding the same for everyone. Macron government is in crisis. Blue and yellow vests arm in arm. Is capitalism imploding? No. To call France a capitalist country is to look at it from the perspective of somebody who thinks it's wrong for one person to have a Mazda and another person to have a Yugo. Okay, this is not the way that you judge economic systems unless you're some sort of all or nothing fanatic. Okay, by the same token, I could call a country like Jamaica a communist haven because I believe Jamaica does have universal health care or something, but it's not. There are markers on a scale between total state control of the economy and zero state control of the economy. So I don't think that France, which I believe it has a top income tax rate of over 75%, if not even higher. I don't think that France is an exhibit of a successful capitalist model economy. It's not an example of any type of capitalist economy. Okay, what he's probably complaining about is the fact that there are certain massive international firms, like, for example, Total, which is a major oil company, that are French, and they probably get a lot of corporate welfare and shielding from the market consequences, and they have a problem with that. And yeah, to have a problem with state crony capitalism, I think is fine, but to claim that this is capitalism itself imploding is ridiculous because France is a country that has all of the basic foundational features that they want, and look at what it's done to them. They're basically collapsing. Why isn't he talking about the fact that the European Union is probably in a state of collapse due to this? I also want to see what was the date on this. That was actually yesterday. So the second topic that we're going to talk about, and to close the first, yes, market volatility, we should be concerned. We shouldn't just say, the president's got this, there's nothing to worry about. We should be concerned. And I think that, if those of you that, I'm not sure exactly the best way to invest, but people talk about gold, they talk about crypto. One channel I can recommend, and I'll try to link it at the end of the video, is Rethinking the Dollar, and he's got good investment strategies. I think people should just don't approach this in the manner of somebody with a political stake. You have to look after your own personal interests in order to lessen the damage if we do go into a financial crisis. Okay. So I hope I'm not causing panic, but I hope I'm also not soothing the ears of passengers on a sinking ship. Okay. Second issue we're going to deal with is also one that Winkle is going through. And this guy, I think he has to move on. Okay. He is so dead set, and he said that he might not vote for Bernie Sanders, but he hasn't changed the name of his Twitter account. So he's still Winkle the Bernie bro. And the fact of the matter is that Bernie Sanders has stabbed his supporters in the back so many times that I'm not sure why anybody would vote for him. Now, what he's trying to talk about more is the issue of the Beto O'Rourke fans being, they're claiming that, we're being attacked by the Bernie bros or whatever. Look, when you have a candidate like Beto O'Rourke, who is going to be he's already been on the national stage, he's gotten fawning praise from all sorts of media, you have no right to complain when other candidates of whatever persuasion start to attack you, when their fans start to attack you, when they bring up your horrible voting record in their eyes. People have the right to criticize your voting record if you're portraying yourself as something that you're not, which he is. He's doing that portraying himself as this progressive in order to essentially poach voters from other progressive candidates. And one of them would be Bernie Sanders. There's no way to pussyfoot around it. And this is from WHYY, which I think is an NPR affiliate. It says Bernie versus Beto, Democratic cannibalization begins. So I think this is an article. I think it's as fair an article as I could find, but we'll see exactly how you guys will judge it. It says Donald Trump seems beatable in 2020 unless Democrats screw things up by beating each other to a pulp. So it's a fair statement. I'm not one to claim that Donald Trump is a sure thing in 2020. There could be health issues. There could be the financial issues and the economy that we were just talking about a couple minutes ago. There's a lot of reasons to worry about his candidacy should he continue to stand for the office. Okay, so I want to make that clear. I probably at this moment I have no reason not to vote for him as of right now because the policies that he's put in place outweigh any drawbacks that I see. There are a few policies that I'd like to see out of him, but for the most part, he is better than I expected. So it's still not outside the realm of possibility that the Democrats could field somebody that would be able to harness, any grassroots opposition to Donald Trump. Okay, the issue that they would have to deal with is, are they going to be acceptable for the corrupt corporate media? So then he says, hey, that didn't take long. The Democrats' 40-seat House triumph is 7 weeks ago. Now come the purity tests and the rights of cannibalization. Welcome to the next 18 months. Beto has the right stuff to run for president, assuming he even runs. What I do know, since I was alive in 2016, is that Bernie and his cult followers are fully capable of sowing vicious, and so maybe this wasn't as fair as I thought, are fully capable of sowing vicious intra-party strife, thus greasing the wheels for Trump. As ex-Hillary and Obama aide Neera Tanden, president of the Liberal Center for American Progress, recently tweeted, "This is seriously dangerous." For that, she was predictably attacked on social media. One Bernie fan called her a lying sack of shit. Natch. Well, she is a lying sack of shit. And there are areas, I don't like Bernie Sanders, and I don't like the fact that some people think that he's above criticism too. But Neera Tanden is a sack of shit. Nearly 36 people are definitely or theoretically interested in the Democratic nomination, God help us, and most of them are pondering the future in relative quietude. But Bernie World is already freaked out about Beto's rapid ascent in recent polls that that measure grassroots Democratic sentiment. Charismatic Beto, who lost his Texas race by only 2.6 points in a state that hasn't elected a Democratic senator in 30 years, is crowding Bernie for second place behind frontrunner Joe Biden. So I want to make this clear. The Beto mania that happened was largely a result of almost like cult-like media adulation that was poured onto his campaign. To claim that Beto O'Rourke built his campaign from the ground up is a lie. It's pure fantasy, and it shows the dishonesty of the media. The Bernie campaign did have a lot of grassroots support. The Bernie supporters did do a lot of on the ground campaigning and organizing. I've talked to some of them, and I'll never agree with them on their policies. But what we can agree on is the facts of what happened. And to compare the Beto O'Rourke campaign to the Bernie Sanders campaign is an insult to the public's intelligence. They're ticked off that Beto met recently with Obama and that Obama, or at least some of Obama's ex-aides, appear supportive. They've interpreted that meeting as evidence that the party establishment remains hostile to Bernie. Well, they are hostile to him, who's not even a Democrat, but never mind. That fact is so, like, this is the issue. They want new voices and new people within the party. That's what they claim. But when you have somebody who comes in and tries to, I guess, change their attitudes, they completely reject him. They say, well, you don't belong in here. You're not one of us. Well, if you don't want people that aren't one of you coming in and affecting the party, then what's the point of trying to attract new voters? What's there? This is why you need more political parties. Therefore, it's deemed imperative to attack Beto early and often. Their chosen method is to give Beto an F on their ideological litmus test. They've been stung by a recent survey of progressives conducted by MoveOn.org, which ranks Bernie as the number 3 candidate, 2 rungs lower than Beto. So they're trying to take down Beto with all deliberate speed. They have studied Beto's speeches and House voting record and found some problematical. It should just be problematic. It's problematic. I don't even know if problematical behavior is a word. Beto or problematical. Beto doesn't support Bernie's Medicare for All Senate bill. Beto does want to empower the EPA and rejoin the Paris Climate Accords, but he got more donations from people in the oil and gas industries than any other federal candidate in 2018. Context for the latter, these donations account for roughly 0.5% of all the money he raised, none of which came from corporate political action committees. That's still an issue. That's still they're trying to massage campaign finance issues so that they don't affect the person they're trying to crown. I think Beto O'Rourke is going to be used as one of the people to siphon off progressive votes from Bernie Sanders, if not to be the eventual nominee that would be basically the establishment puppet. So that's my thinking about Beto O'Rourke. Litmus testers have also been busy highlighting potential candidates' alleged impurities, such as Biden, Kamala Harris, and Cory Booker, and that was inevitable because many on the left will abide nothing short of perceived perfection. If we really want to play that game, Bernie fails it as well. Check out his gun-friendly Senate votes. But the Bernie camp's beef is not about Beto's ideology or lack thereof. The Bernie camp is mostly worried that Beto will snatch their market share. In the 2016 Democratic primaries, Bernie cornered the market on voters under 40. The latest polls show that Beto is ascendant with voters under 40. Now, this is a valid point. They're trying, like the Bernie people are scared that Beto O'Rourke would be used to siphon off their underage voters, not underage, but their younger voters. Sorry, Bernie and his fans cannot abide by that. They view Beto as the beneficiary of a personality cult, which may be true. No, it is true. And that's a potential threat as well, given the fact that Bernie is the beneficiary of a personality cult. This is, they're talking about the pot calling the kettle black. But the fact is that Bernie Sanders, when he says certain things that are not according to the media prescribed narrative, he does get attacked by the mainstream media, by the corporate shills in the mainstream media, by the party elites. He does. By entertainment people. Bernie Sanders, I don't like at all. But you can't deny that he gets targeted when he speaks out of turn. And then people claim, well, he's having a personality cult. Some of that is true, and some of that is the fact is that he has to stand up for policies that he deems are important. And those are the people that have a problem with that. Well, you're basically telling him to be a fraud, which I think he is a fraud. I think at the end of the day, when he doesn't stand up to the rest of the Democratic establishment, he is a fraud. At this point, with the Democrats having lost the Senate again in 2018, they've lost 2 more seats in the Senate, and they have less power now in the Senate. What's his incentive? What's his incentive to continue to collaborate with the Democratic Party? I don't see it. No one can compare to Bernie. Beto's evil record has nothing to do with Bernie because I always will be #never Beto and #never Hillary for the rest of my life. I will only support Dem socialists who are the real progressive of Democratic Party. No, this is there's nothing wrong with what this person tweeted. Okay, there is a problem when you tell people, oh, you should just settle for less, settle for somebody who is, only 5% of what you want, because that's not the way a free society behaves. Okay, I'm not calling America a model democracy, but people have the right to vote for candidates, even if they vote for policies that aren't necessarily what some would consider practical. I don't consider democratic socialism to be a policy that I would support at all. But we're allowed to vote for people that propose things that we like. Okay? If I want to vote for a hardcore libertarian, which I have on occasion, then I should have that right, and so should these people have the right to vote for some of these hardcore left-wing people. Note the anti-Hillary hashtag. My Twitter feed has been packed lately with Bernie fans and perhaps some Russian bots. Oh, here we go. So this article is not fair at all. Pretending to be Bernie fans, railing even now about how horrible Hillary is. I kid you not, and the Bernie-Beto clash is likely a grim portent of what awaits us during the run-up to the Democratic debates that begin next June. Ben LeBolt, a former Obama aide, tells NBC News there are going to be two ways for candidates to run their primary candidates, and the other is to run a scorched earth campaign against the other Democrats. Democrats should keep their eye on the prize and avoid fueling the next Jill Stein boomlet. There was no Jill Stein boomlet. Anybody who wants to characterize Jill Stein's candidacy as having adversely affected the Democratic campaign has to remember that she earned much less of a vote share than many third-party candidates over the past 20 years. She earned less, I believe, even than Ralph Nader in 2004 or something. So think about that. In 2000, that was Ralph Nader's high watermark. And people should have voted more for Ralph Nader at the time, too. Because you guys are going to hate what I'm about to say, but Ralph Nader would have been a more acceptable president in my mind than either George Bush or Al Gore. He would have been a more sane person. Would he have been great? No. But he wouldn't have been the complete disaster that either of those would have been. What are the odds that Democrats, especially the Bernie-crats, will maximize their 2020 potential? Anyone who still believes that Donald Trump won't be able to exploit those schisms is living in our dream world. So that's an accurate last sentence. But the rest of the article was crap. Beto O'Rourke will have to be put under the scrutiny of every single person in the country should he run for president. And that includes people who voted for Bernie Sanders or even Jill Stein. You don't get to have a clear path to the presidency just because people are saying, well, it's kind of mean when you attack other Democrats. Well, it's a competition, man. It's a competition. And if people want to object to certain policies that a candidate has proposed, then there's no reason to call this, sniping or anything. This is the way things work. Politics is not a new, primary politics, internecine fighting, that type of thing is not new to the world. And I'll tell you what, if this is the type of treatment that continues to happen during the campaign, you know what? Donald Trump will eventually be able to demolish whoever comes out if you give somebody kind of a free pass during the primary. That's what they did to Hillary Clinton. They basically tried to skew the primary her way and make it seem as if she'd won by a far larger margin than she did. And that's how you alienated the Bernie people. Okay, if she would have played it fair and square, maybe she would have won and still been able to gain a lot more votes than she did. That's about it. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to my other channels on CocoScope and BitChute below, and also on all the other social media in the description, Minds, Gab, and whatever else. See you guys later.